Hey, it's Joe Solari, and this is the Business of Writing. Today we have Katie Cross with us. How you doing, Katie?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be here.
Cool. So today we're going to talk about not just your career, but we're going to really focus in on how you went a path less traveled and focused heavily on growing your business through a direct marketing strategy where you're doing direct sales.
Yeah.
For the folks that have watched this in the past, I've done a few things on this, and I love when I can find people that are out there pioneering this because I believe that long term, this is where the business needs to go. That the closer you can get to your customer, the better relationship you can have, and the better you can serve them. So why don't we get started? Like, go jump in the Wayback Machine and tell us how you initially got suckered into writing books.
Yeah. So this is the Wayback Machine for sure. I think it's almost like 8 or 9 years ago. So I met my husband. He was in the Army, and I was working as a pediatric nurse. I married him, followed him to Tennessee, and quickly realized that it's hard to be a nurse when you move every 6 months because my
Mm.
husband's all over the place. And the way things worked out in between a couple of his training programs, because we had to move every 6 months for a while, I just couldn't have a job. My license didn't transfer. I didn't really want to get a travel nurse job. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. I call it my quarter life crisis because I was 25. And I just decided I've always loved writing books. I had been writing books since I was in the first grade. I just loved to write. So I thought I would just try it out. So I tried it out, wrote Miss Mabel's School for Girls. It was really well received. So I just kept writing that series. I eventually transitioned into writing full time. When we moved to Colorado, I stopped working. To this day, I still write full time, and I've published, I think, just under 30 novels under my name, Grass.
And when you got started, did you try like writing query letters and doing the traditional route, or did you just dive right into indie
No,
publishing?
yeah, that did not sound like fun to me. I was kind of like looking into it, and I did look at self-publishing versus traditional. And this was in 2011 when I first published Miss Mabel. So we were outside of the big, huge. You could throw any book up, and it would make a ton of
Mm-hmm.
money. And it was just we're starting to like pick up some slog. But it was still like new, and things were still pretty exciting. And I mean, it's still new today, but I just didn't the idea of querying for years and having someone else pitching my book, it just didn't sound fun to me. I'm not a super patient person when I can take the wheel. And so I was like,
Mm.
forget this. I think I'm just gonna try it out myself. And I self-published, and it launched at like 300 or 400 copies that single weekend. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just pushing it out there, and it just continued to grow from there. So exciting.
Cool. And where did you kind of hear about self-publishing? Was there like a course you took, or were you just doing research on the internet?
Yeah. Mostly research on the internet and other authors I was interacting with. I had been on this
Oh,
website. It was kind of like what Wattpad is now, but it was way cheaper, less funded. It's called Fan Story, I think. I can't remember. Like a very small handful of the world would even know what it is. But there were other people there that had self-published, were talking about it, and that's where I started talking about it. And I was able to find some author friends because I didn't know anyone else that wrote, and they were talking about it. So I just kind of started looking into things and getting into author groups through
mm,
probably like Facebook groups, that kind of
yeah.
thing, or just websites like Joanna Penn, found her, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's always interesting how people get into that because it's a precarious deal because there's um, different camps of like which way you should go, and then there's this whole bunch of people out there that are vanity presses that are just saying they're going to make you a bestseller, but they're just looking to. So it's hard for a lot of folks when they're just getting started. So and now you were just launching on Amazon at that time, or
I started with Smashwords and Amazon. That was, I
okay.
think, before. I can't remember if Draft to Digital had come out by then, but I I launched Miss Mabel's as wide as I could. Kindle Unlimited was just a baby at that time, if I remember. It was still pretty new, and I think eventually I went into it months later and tried it out, but came out of it. Like I've never really been super committed to anything like that. So I did launch wide to get on Nook and all those other places. But it was through
Mhm.
Smashwords, because I remember when Drafted Digital came out, I was like, this is the best. Like comparatively, I just struggled a lot with Smashwords and eventually just pulled off the platform. But I can't remember if Drafted Digital was out.
Yeah, when you go back and you think about some of the stuff that we've had to deal with, like, I used to say to authors when like they were talking about setting up a company, it's to be like, well, if you've ever put a book on CreateSpace, it'll be easier than that, right? Like,
Yeah, it was the days of CreateSpace, that's for sure.
right? Like,
Oh, that was a
if you
nightmare.
can do that, then you'll have no problem like setting up your company online because nothing
Oh,
is as
that's
hard
awesome.
as that, right? So,
That's awesome. That's
um,
awesome.
so, what kind of walk us through kind of the dark part of the journey with selling and what got you to eventually try out something as crazy as selling books direct to your readers?
Wow, I would say sheer desperation at that point. I was it was a little over 2 years ago. I remember just sitting at my kitchen table and I was just so frustrated because it seemed like no matter how many books I launched out, no matter how well they did, no matter how much I connected with my readers, my royalty checks were just so low. I can't remember. I mean, it was a good month to make 5,000. And for the number of books that I had, I think I had 20, a little less than 20 at the time. It just seemed ridiculous that I wasn't making more money. And I, I really focused on connecting with my readers through email, but I just didn't, I knew I had like a problem. I just didn't know where it was. I had a big
Mhm.
problem and I was just angry. And I was on Facebook one day and I saw this ad for a guy that talked about doing direct sales. And so I looked at it and kind of looked into the course and decided to try it out. And I ended up setting up the basis of what would eventually become this system and this process that I've built now. And it was really just getting this stuff set up in BookFunnel and Shopify and landing pages and all that kind of stuff. And I just decided, as I saw what other people were doing with direct sales, the writing was sort of on the wall. Like I just realized this Amazon hamster wheel that I'm constantly fighting. Like I'm fighting for a place on Amazon, but they don't care about me. And they like the the way they could kind of sometimes control things and move things around, and I was just fighting with to be seen with other authors just didn't feel like a sustainable business model that created safety for my family because we were dependent on my paycheck. So I just wanted a way that I controlled my cash flow, my company, my strategy, and I just controlled more what I was doing because I did a lot of work on the entrepreneur side of things. Like I did a lot of researching on how to be an entrepreneur, how to build business, how to build processes, like how to do that kind of stuff. But I just couldn't ever make it all come together. So once I set up the direct sales system and I started dabbling in that, I just felt the control that I wanted coming into my
Mm.
company. I actually had a cash flow structure. I actually had different like positions that I could start filling for because the cash came in and like I if I spent this much on ads and I made this much, then I knew what that meant and I knew how to get more money like, or more people coming to my website in a way that would make them buy. And I was able to just actually control the way things happened, and that was worth all the scariness of launching into something that just seems so not done in this world.
Well, it's counterintuitive, right? Because
Mhm.
like you want to sell books, they've consolidated the marketplace. 60% of all books, print or ebook, get sold in the United States on Amazon. Why would you go somewhere else? Why would I mean, you had to set up your own website that says nobody knows what, like that. Those are not the logical choices to make.
Right.
What got you comfortable with that?
Uh, Time and really, really small action steps. So I was starting with zero SEO traction on a new URL and a website that hadn't been optimized and all kinds of things. And I was having to let go of the mindset that my author ranking on Amazon was a reflection of success, right? So, well, my book ranked here, my author ranking was here. That means I'm a success. I had to kind of let go of those things first, and
Mm-hmm.
then just accept that with time, everything mattered. So even like small actions add up to big things. So, I got the katiecrossbooks.com URL. I got the store set up. I started to like funnel traffic to it. I was getting things prepped and ready for this thing to take off. And eventually over time that started to feel less scary, because as I really saw what I was building, I felt the security in it. Like Amazon could crash tomorrow and I would be totally fine because I have my own store set up and I have my funnel, and it doesn't matter if Barnes and Noble like
Mm.
goes out because they've been trying to die for years. It's like, they have, I swear, every time they keep getting saved and I'm like, oh my gosh, just let the horse die. So once I saw that happening over time and with effort, I started to feel less afraid of it, and I actually started to feel like this is so much more stable than anything I've ever had before, because I'm able to pivot it in like a minute. So I'll get on with my team and I'll say, hey, we noticed this. Let's brainstorm some ideas to do it better. And we'll all come up with ideas together. And within 24 hours, we can be moving a totally new direction. Or I'll say, hey, we're in the black. The way things have been going, we could be in the red by the end of the week. Let's think up a way to like keep us profitable, and we'll like spit something out or try something else. We have a direct feedback to say, oh, here's our cash flow. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we can, here's what the readers love. So over time that built that safety where I started to learn, oh, I'm actually in control and I'm more creative and I pivot faster than I thought. And so after a while, I only feel safe like at this model.
So when going back to that time, I'm assuming, there was a point where you weren't happy with sales anywhere, right? Like you were on all these platforms. Walk me through kind of how you saw that changing over time, where it was like on your own site, probably 0 sales or 1 sale. And that was the one that you did to test to make sure everything worked. And then, right. And then
days that way.
Right. But it changes over time. Right. And like, just kind of walk me through that experience and how, what were some of the big kind of keystone moments?
Yeah. So like on the retailers, I was always happy when I had a BookBub, because, I'd see my numbers skyrocket with BookBub, but then drop right back down and the long tail ended. And that was always frustrating. But when I first started the direct sales system and I was really learning, what do my readers want? Like, what do they want to see? How do I serve them best? And how do I represent that in my system? There were days where it's like, I sent like 100 people to my store today and like one of them converted. Right. And so I made $20 after spending 100 or something. It was really frustrating because there is a sense of, I so desperately want this to work and I'm working so hard. Why isn't it working? And you kind of get into these mindsets of, oh, well, this just doesn't work, or I'm always doing something wrong, or I'm a failure, whatever mindset you get into. So what I would do is I would just learn how to peg down when I was getting in my own way with mindsets. And then I would say, well, let's like look at the data. So I had 100 people come and one converted, and they converted on this landing page and they converted at this amount. So I would just back everything away from emotion, look at data, make decisions based on the data. And then I would just say, okay, like this is just an opportunity to do something better. And so we would pivot to a different landing page, or we would say, well, this ad failed. That's okay, but this one didn't really fail. So let's build off the one that didn't fail. And so, I think the difficult days of the beginning, when everything feels so desperate and stark and bleak because you're investing money and you're not getting it back right away, I think were best for me conquered with managing my mindset and using data decisions, and then like leaning on other people that were kind of in it, like, hey, are you seeing this? What did you see here? And being able to talk to other people that are doing it.
Sure. Can you help folks that might be watching this understand like how different it is in the context of that data that you're talking about? Like for somebody that's used to just seeing like they have that same dashboard in Facebook that you have, but they don't have the back end that you have in Shopify, or they're used to just looking at, AMS ads or BookBub, and like how, fundamentally different that is when you're direct selling and
Yeah.
what you've learned through that.
So let me just give an overview of my funnel so I can kind of
Mhm.
walk them through what data points I take where and how direct sales makes that different. So what I do is I run Facebook ads to a landing page that's usually tested between I have at any given moment 2 to 5 landing pages that we're testing, whether we're testing price points or images or words or way things are raised on the landing page. You go to a landing page where they can subscribe to get my first book free. And when they subscribe, they're taken to a thank you page, and it's a sales page that basically offers the rest of the series. It's a 5 book series for like a versus what they would have on the retailer. So I think it's priced $29.99, but we sell it for anywhere from 15 to 20. So that it's that like sale, the sale that comes from like subscribing, they want to get that deal. That's really what ends up fueling the Facebook ads, and that helps me okay, this ad is successful because Facebook's punting people to me that are actually buying this. If they don't buy, that's fine. They go into an email sequence where I give them like a second chance at the offer. And then I just have some like sort of like a welcome sequence. I'm like training them that I have a direct sales platform. So one of the emails they get a few days after they get my first book free, get my first book free, I give them some time to start it. And then I basically say, look, I don't work with Amazon anymore because they're a company too and they want to keep the power. And that doesn't make sense for authors. So I basically teach them like, hey, I sell from my website so that you can get a discount and you can get the books for a better price. And then I have a weekly newsletter, I have Facebook groups, I have nurture campaigns, I have all that kind of stuff. So in a direct sales model, when I actually get the data, instead of like sending traffic ads from Facebook onto Amazon, you're basically paying people to go buy other stuff. I've run ads through Amazon affiliate links before, and you look at what people are buying, and they're buying like diapers and jam, and like I
Trailer
was like,
hitches and
I made like 75 cents on someone buying like 3 boxes of Depends one day. So, I've seen that, but you're basically just, you don't know what happens once you send them to Amazon. So there's this total dearth of data that you don't know how to make decisions on. But with direct sales, I can know, okay, the ads went, and this isn't just Facebook, this is like Pinterest. I have Pinterest ads going too, or I have like podcasts or videos that I'm on that get the same landing page link. So it's not always just advertising. There are other ways to get people into my funnel. But I can look and say, this many people went into my funnel, this many people like converted this to the tune of this many dollars. So I know my cost per click is less than 25 cents. My click through rate is 19%. Like I have different metrics on Facebook ads that I can monitor, and on Pinterest ads that I monitor, and it creates more of a direct relationship. With the iOS changes in Facebook and some data privacy going out, we see a little less efficacy between actual numbers. But I actually have all that data to then say, this is what's working right and well, and I can then pivot and make decisions based on landing pages, the ad itself, instead of just sending people to Amazon and looking at my affiliate data dashboard and hoping that they're buying. But I
Mm.
don't know like when they clicked or when they're buying. And also with direct sales and Shopify, I can see what hours of the day people are buying. So across the board, I unless there's like some special circumstance, I cannot make Wednesday and Thursday a very profitable day. Like, well, we can make profits, but there's something about Wednesday and Thursday across the last 2 years that people just don't buy. Like, people just don't buy books on Wednesday and Thursday. My people don't buy books on Wednesday and Thursday. And then if you look at the hours, I can like pinpoint hours of the day when sales are going to hit. So I might turn ads off in between those hours and turn them back
Mm.
on. So there's a power in having a direct relationship with your buyers because you know their behaviors and how to serve them best.
Mm. Yeah. And now that so how long have you been doing direct sales?
Just about 2 years.
2 years. And have you started to see how much is recurring revenue from existing customers?
Yeah. So there's a way to dive into all that, like when you're looking at like lifetime value, when you're looking at LTV, uh, those sorts of metrics. Most of, I say probably most of, I can't give you a number, and I hate to guesstimate, but probably close to 60% of my sales are people coming back from my email. Whether it's like they actually decided they started the book and wanted that collection after all. So not 3 days later, they'll buy it. Or I've noticed that the faster I get people from sort of my like short welcome sequence and into my active weekly newsletter, the more they buy. Their LTV is much longer and much higher because they're still excited. I'm still new. Um, so yes, but I couldn't like off the top of my head give you super clear data on
No, yeah, I wasn't looking for necessarily
it.
specifically that would have been great, but the point that you can actually see that stuff, right? Like,
Yes.
um, I think that from the conversations that I've had and, around direct sales, there's this apprehension about what you're giving up to get that. And, you talked about rank, but it's like, these are your customers now, right? It's a different, a different connection because you don't technically have their credit card information, but they've transacted with you, right? And and you can start to see things like, oh, look at these people are like these people, and they tend to buy this series and they buy it in this kind of pace. You mentioned lifetime value. I think that's the other thing that this opens the door to is what else can you sell people?
So that's a perfect segue to something I was going to bring up. I launched a book a couple weeks ago. It's a first in series, and it's a continuation series from my flagship series, the Network series. So the Network Saga launched 2 weeks ago with the first book, The Lost Magic. And I said to my team, I said, let's figure out a way to increase our average order value. Because always when I sell a book, I want to make sure I'm selling it at the right price, but we're also engaging the reader to buy like with the average order value as high as possible because we see higher profitability, but still within like what the reader wants. So I said, I'm gonna write. There were 2 short stories that I wrote while making this book that helped me understand the world. And I said, these are really high value short stories. So let's test what happens if we have these short stories available, at least one of them available on launch, but we don't market it at all. We just have it at the back of the book saying, hey, if you want to know more about this character and how she began, here's the short story for you. And I said, we can test how much that changes our average order value so that our launch goes double. So instead of making $4.99 a book, we're actually making like $6 or $7.99 a book because they're buying this additional short story that they're going to be excited about. Like like these readers will really want the story, so we're serving them. Or also like without any additional marketing or effort, we're actually going to increase our average order value. So we did that, and the fun thing about it is it's at like a $2.99 price point. So every day we're seeing like just tons of orders come through for $2.99, and it's that short story. So we're actually able to gauge not only like how many people are reading through that book to get to the end, but also how many of them are interested in that additional short story to the point that they would pay $2.99 for it, and we can engage them in a higher way. And then there's also really cool options like you can add like frequently bought together buttons so they can actually see what else is in the series. And like today I had a $40 order go through where someone pre-ordered the rest of the series. Like they're like, sweet, I'm just gonna buy the whole thing now. So I already have pre-orders for the 4th book and I haven't even written the 2nd. But I see that they're buying it in bulk because I know who's buying it and I know when they're buying it and I know that they're excited about buying it. So we're harnessing that and then turning it into greater profit.
Well, and what I've talked to folks about that are just trying this out is like, hey, before you like go build a funnel like Katie and get all these things, it's like you can do this with BookFunnel and PayPal right in your newsletter and sell a book you haven't even written yet. Right? Like you can run your own pre-order where you get paid up front. Is it going to be a huge amount of money? No, because it takes time. You kind of mentioned already is conditioning your audience and getting them to understand that. But that process over time gets them to see like, oh, if I want to get the book, I can get it earlier over here. Like a client that is pretty heavy in KU, but he still does direct sales. to his newsletter prior to putting the book into KU, because he's a big audience that hates Amazon. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And they love it. Like that's part of their, their ethos, that they, not only are we sticking it to Amazon, I'm making sure the author makes more money and I get it sooner.
And I think too, you can create perks and incentives, but you also serve your reader better. So yes, I'm always finding ways to business better, to profit better, to run things better. But really, in the end, I wanted my readers to have the best experience possible. And I couldn't do that with other retailers controlling price points. Like Audible, I have no idea what they're going to price my books at. And I hate that. Like that's ridiculous that I'm the creator and the copyright holder and I don't get any say. That I don't like that. So
yeah,
I think it's amazing for the relationship between me and my readers, because I have readers write in and they'll say, I just lost my husband. And I'm so grateful that I can escape into your world because it gives me a little boost. And I'll say, hey, here's the next series for free. Like, go do what you need. Like, let yourself escape. Or they'll say, my daughter's really excited about this. She's saving up her money, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, here's a coupon for her to get like 20% off. You know what I mean? Like, so we can actually give coupons and sales and discounts. And I had one team member that didn't have the paperback copies, and through my direct sales system, I was able to just like print them through Lulu and send them to her without having to like individually order them through KDP and have like 20,000 different packages. I could just put them all in the same order, give myself a discount, and my business is paid out in the back end. So it just allows a versatility for the relationship with the reader that allows you to actually interact in a way that puts your brand out there in a strong way and lets readers know you actually care and you want the best for them. And so you want to be able to pivot so that they can get what they need and at a better price without big tech encroaching into everyone's business.
Right. And I think that the part that, for authors that are on Amazon, what they have to recognize is that Amazon's not making money off their books. Amazon's making money off the advertising of those books. Right. There's only two parts of the Amazon ecosystem that are profitable. It's AWS, so the server system, and advertising. And advertising is growing. Like I started talking about this in 2016 about how like they're getting on conference calls and they're like, yeah, we're going to be making $20 billion a year in advertising in a couple of years. They're making $4 billion, right? And then when you compare that to something like Facebook and Google, which make hundreds of, not hundreds of billions, but, $50 billion a year in advertising, like, why wouldn't Amazon make more money? They are the bottom of the funnel. They should be just raking hand over fist. That means that's your cost of goods that's going up, right? Like,
right. Like that has implications for the people that are actually putting the products out. That's the interesting thing is as a business model, putting all of your eggs in Amazon's basket works for some people for now, but when you're playing a long-term game, it's just it's a stability issue. And it's because of the placement of where you are to them,
And you've got a product that's like super low margin. It's hard to advertise that, right? It's not like you're selling, stuff that has got high margin and you can have a couple bucks a click and know that you got a lifetime value of, I had with our family's home brewing store, we have an e-commerce store and, we're prepared to spend $25 to get a new customer.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you're advertising against me, even if you don't think you are. Like those are the people you're advertising against. And when you know that your lifetime value of your customers $500 on average a year, then that's why all Facebook ads go up in price, is because I'm prepared to do that. But there's guys that are selling high ticket items on there that a customer's worth $10,000, right? Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. And when you have like an ebook collection, you're selling it like $14.99 or $9.99. I know some people who are selling it $7.99. It's almost impossible to keep those margins like super profitable. So you have to just have to be, for sure. I think what you said about starting slow is probably the best like like information to really give here. So like anyone who wants to go into direct sales, I've been doing this for 2 years and I have a team of 8 people that help support me run it. So if you're just getting started, that concept of small steps make big things happen is really what you need to invest in right now. You need to say, okay, I'm just going to get my book funnel account set up and get my book listed there and just see how that feels, right? And then maybe you just like share it with your family and have them test the process, or you just say, "Hey, I'm pre-ordering my book, but it's going to be available here and it's going to arrive in your inbox at midnight." You know what I mean? Like, so you start really
Mm.
small and then say, "Okay, I think I'm ready to actually have like go to Shopify or WooCommerce or wherever else you want to go," and then say, "I want to actually have a store." And maybe you love book funnels, you want to sell book funnel, I don't know, but you don't have to like throw in like I have at this stage. Like you can let yourself grow naturally into the business model that you want to have. Because my business model is extremely intentional to what
Mm.
I want in my life. And it looks different than every other business model out there. And I think that's where like you need to really focus is yourself and
Sure. And, I think that that's awesome advice because, prior to getting on the call, we're talking about a mutual person we know, and they have a very big business and have a big fan base. And as they go into direct sales, a lot of the same things apply. You need to test things out. Like you need to do it. Just because you want to go into direct sales doesn't mean that your audience necessarily wants to, right? Like, and maybe they do, but they just need to understand. I mean, um, it's going to take time to condition people. I know that's having done this with a few people and had the experience. The first couple things you do are really underwhelming, but it's like it's okay. We went from 10 sales to 12 sales this launch. Okay. It's a 10% improvement. Like now it's right. And it takes time for people to go through that, and get comfortable, and on both sides, right? You as the person running this is figuring out like, oh, wow, I better think through that through. I didn't do that very well. Right. At least I made that mistake with only 10 people.
Well, I think that's where the idea of oh shoot, where is that going with that? But like the small steps to big things, but also like switching your mindset from emotion to data, right? To saying, I only sold pre-order 12, I'm such a failure, but take that away, like, and then say, well, based on the data, I have more than last time, right? And
Yep.
then that's this much profit I wouldn't have had otherwise, and it's cash in hand. So, you have like it in your PayPal account, so you can do with it what you want, and then you just re-strategize the new plan based on the data you. So
Mm.
I think that's like if you're starting into direct sales, that's like your next step is to divorce emotion and data from your decision making process and look at the data at first. Eventually you'll bring emotion back into it, but when you're actually making the decision to go off whatever data you have, then bring emotion back in.
Mm. So one thing you earlier talking about kind of your funnel and how you're using kind of a traditional digital funnel of educating a customer about your business and what they can get. Are you using any of the functionality of machine learning or uh, providing your catalog information into say Facebook where they can then use some of their more higher end strategies that authors that are going to Amazon can't because they don't have that loop closing?
Um, like my Shopify is connected to Facebook, and Facebook has like specific books that I allow in the catalog that show up on my page. That it's funny, like if I update a price or I put a new like I put a book up the other day to pre-order on Shopify without any intention of announcing it until like October, and I had like 5 sales within like 10 minutes. Like what just happened? And then I realized it was through the Facebook channel because I went to Facebook and people were commenting on it. I was like, "Are you like waiting for this? This is crazy." But I use Active Campaign as my email service provider, and they have some like AI driven technology in that I can have emails sent based on previous open time. So
Hmm.
like Active Campaign just kind of analyzes when they're opening emails, and then they will send that email at a time when they're most likely to open it. And then they have Shopify and Active Campaign have an integration where like product blocks can kind of populate and that sort of
Mm.
stuff. So nothing super deep, but certainly dabbling in like how that can turn our profit a little bit higher and make it easier for the reader to engage so that they are finding the books at the time that they need
Hmm.
them.
Yeah, I've seen you know, just something as simple as now being able to retarget, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I do have different like retargeting strategies and campaigns that we try out. That's a harder one to be profitable on, but can be really powerful when you're sort of waking readers back up that
Hmm.
haven't engaged in a while, and it can help you create a higher lifetime value when there's been like a sluggish time in that reader's engagement with you. So I think there's benefits you can kind of pull out, but retargeting has been most powerful for me on launching. So I really drive retargeting campaigns like through launches to say,
Hmm.
hey, like we've got more for you. And sometimes that's all the reader wants. They're like, I'm just here for the books. Like I don't really care about your newsletter, you know?
Yeah, and that's something I've always said is that's something you should ask readers is because there. I just did a survey of it was almost 2,000 readers, and the number of newsletters. I think the average was 20 that the average reader is on. So it's a lot, right? Like if you're an avid reader and you want to know what's going on, to think that that many newsletters are weekly hitting into their mailbox, you're just going to get lost in that. So ask them the question, like, do you just want alerts when I'm launching a book?
So I
And
have, yeah, I have like in that welcome sequence, I give them a chance to unsubscribe.
yeah,
Like I want to like weed out the people. I don't want to pay for the people that really just want the free book. And if they did,
mm-hmm,
that's great.
yeah,
But I say, I'm like, hey, if you want to be here, this is what you're going to get. Like it'll be similar to what you've already had. But if you don't, no problem. You can unsubscribe. Or I have a new release only list, and they just have to
yeah,
click a link that goes to a page that says thank you, and Active Campaign puts them on that new release list. And I'll send out when I have a new release, like with the Lost Magic. I think I have almost 20,000 people on a new release only list. I just kind of sent out a whim of an email and I said, hey, in a week, my next book, The Lost Magic, is launching. You wanted to know about my new releases, so that's why you're getting this. And I said, I offer the pre-order from my website for a discount, and it's going to go away in this many days. So grab what you can. And thousands of dollars came off that email, and it was really just like a here you go, and
it's
I was able
crazy, right?
thousands of dollars, right? And it
uh,
re-engaged people that had been sleeping for a while, which is always a good thing. And then just this morning, I sent out an email and I said, "Do you still want to be here, or like, are you tired of getting emails?" And then inside, I just say, "Hey, if you want to unsubscribe, here it is. Here's my new release only, or stay if you want this." And I'm like really warm and connect with them. And we're getting tons of emails today from people like, "No, I love your newsletter," but we're also getting people that are like, "Yeah, I'm done," and they'll unsubscribe. And then I ask them, is this okay? Like, are the numbers of email I'm sending okay? Do you want more? Do you want less?
mm.
And people are replying and letting me know, which is exactly the sort of data you want to hear.
Yeah, and I think it's something I've been working on with folks. The more you do around story based read through emails, so stuff that's helping people get through a series, the less you have to be worried about a weekly newsletter. Because if they're getting email sequences that are tied to the books they're reading, you're kind of meeting them where they're at, right? And that's really what they want is story based stuff and things that are tied into your story world or your characters. That's who they really have connected with. Hate to break it to you, but Katie, you're just the person there to make things work, right?
I don't know. I think I'd push back on that because
Yeah.
I think there is truth in that, but from the data that I've gathered, some story based, like connection and story based emails for my readers classically fail across
Oh.
the board to convert into, like, if converting is like clicking on a link or buying something, And even like sometimes depending on the subject line, I can get them to open those emails, but they historically don't do anything. But the emails that are updates about my life, updates on the next book, pictures of me, uh, anything going on in my life. Like last year, our house almost burned down and we were evacuated twice, and it was just a crazy story. I actually kept people updated on that. I know some of our best open rates we had seen, and we had people emailing me months after to see if we
Hmm.
were okay. So when I'll send out like deleted scenes or short stories that they get for free like once a month. People are excited about those, but they don't open as fast as the emails that are about me, which is super interesting. Like
Hmm.
not super exciting as a person, but to the readers apparently I am. So I think it just depends on what your audience wants.
Well, I also think with that, when you start looking at it, is sometimes you have to not be so focused on the data and what you're doing to develop the story brand,
Mhm.
right? And that some of that stuff that is more story based, that they know it isn't time sensitive, is something that they're digesting. Like, oh, this is a deleted scene. I'm going to read that tonight,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Or I'm not going to read it until I get done with the book.
Yeah.
And what you're doing there is more alchemy than science, right? Because what you're trying to do is use the you're really getting in their head and getting them to connect their identity with your story world and those characters versus it's a two-edged sword with the data, right? Like you can be always focused on getting my conversion rate up to the point where it starts to deteriorate the overall experience because now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, all she wants is my attention and my money.
Or my money, right? Like there's certainly a balance between where we are. I'm really careful about how many offers I'm sending out in my emails, right? So like there's the give, ask kind of principle, or the swing, punch, or whatever you want to call it, where you're serving and connecting with your readers, and then making an ask or giving an offer, something like that. So we try to be cognizant of that, and because that's something to be aware of, because it isn't all about data. I think more to what you're speaking to, there's so much power in staying top of mind that even just seeing the email, maybe if they don't
Mm,
read the short story but just kind of scrolling through it and they don't do anything, there's still some power of still being in their mind. Like they're still forming some sort of a thought pattern around you and a relationship, and your books are in their head. So I think you're right. I don't think I'm not trying to discount the power of story and characters and emails, but when it comes to my specific audience, they just want more of me, and so that's what we try to give them. You know,
yeah. Well, and if they're clearly indicating it, then you roll with that, right?
right? Yeah, and so and that's changed. Like my audience used to respond more to like connection based emails where I was giving them stories about my life and just trying to uplift them. I wouldn't sell anything. It's just, every other week I'd just tell a funny story or something. And our open rates just trended down. People stopped emailing. They just didn't really care. But when I incorporated just more real life updates, we just kind of changed what we were doing. We made more sales and offers. Our open rates back up, and we started to see engagement returning. So in a year it might change again, and I might need to go back to more of a connection based whatever. We just roll with what our readers are telling us and allow ourselves to change from what we've done.
Well, and I that's the most important thing in my view is like the closer you can get that relationship between you and your reader, like that's the whole basis of this industry. Like if you don't write stories, they don't have anything to pay for. And if they don't pay for it, you don't have a business. And
Right.
anything, right? And like anything else, like Amazon, Book Funnel, Shop, all that, that's just friction,
Mhm. Yeah, no, I
right?
agree. And that's where direct sales, I was saying, just makes it so easy to have that relationship with your readers, because you can say, I hear you, you're going through a tough time. Here's how we could help. Like you indicate,
Yeah.
like you were saying that my books are sweeping you away. Well, I'm going to give you the next series because I want you to have this right now. Like I want you to have some support, and I can just send them the link, and we form everlasting relationships that way. And then I get these launch teams that are so powerful with hundreds of people applying because they want to be part of what we've created. So I think direct sales gave me that direct relationship with my
Mhm.
readers in a way that I never saw on just retailers, because I can't hand them a coupon code to Amazon, right? Like even drafted digital, like it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's kind of sucks, right? Because there's these people there that are looking for that relationship, but because Amazon has got, it's their business, right? They're doing what they can do to take care of their shareholders. So, they're making decisions that aren't necessarily good for your customer relationship and your shareholder being you.
Which is their right. I mean, it's their
Yeah.
sandbox, their rules. But if you're not being aware of that, then like that could just kind of come back on you later.
Well, and I'm of the view that what's going to happen with direct sales, and probably more so in the area of audiobooks, could be the fundamental moment that creators really take back the castles to the keys to the castle, right? Like, there's just some things going on with BookFunnel being able to deliver audio and having that
quality too.
Yeah, and the app, right? So like from the customer experience, the fact that you're going to have all your audiobooks and books in BookFunnel, right? That's going to be real interesting because I've never had, like, when I see all the data comes back off of surveys, like why people buy from Amazon, it's never because they love them. It's because, well, I like everything on my Kindle. Like that's the number one reason. Like,
yeah,
because it's handy on a single device.
Right.
Wow. Like how fragile is that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think too, the other thing that I like about the long-term feasibility of direct sales is the world is going to subscription models, right? We're there. Like you're looking at Netflix, you're looking at Disney, you're looking at all these other subscription, Kindle Unlimited. We live in the world of subscription models. Eventually, publishing will probably get there too, and authors will need to pivot to that sort of model. And while I don't think it's here yet for indies, I think that trend will continue to grow that way, and it will be interesting to see how it changes the industry. But with direct sales, I have a greater ease of transitioning to that sort of model on my own. And I can kick out books now so that I have those to give in case we have to flex to a subscription model, but I wouldn't be able to do that on like Amazon or Draft to Digital or anything like that in that same way. So it's a way to sort of get ahead of what is inevitable in a way that wouldn't make like a year-long transition time where all of a sudden I don't have revenue coming in. We can pivot a little easier.
Yeah, that's, I think, a real important point is like we haven't really talked about, like, from a business efficiency, like you actually get paid in 2 working days, not 60 days, right? Like,
so in sheer cash flow management, then we're talking about, oh, like I spent this much money in ads or whatever it was I was doing, and oh, I got this much back cash in hand. That completely changes your ability to do, because you might be running ads from Facebook or Amazon or Pinterest or BookBub or wherever you're running them to Amazon, and maybe your numbers are increasing, but you're not going to see that cash flow for 60 days. So my question was always, how do I make this work in the meantime? And at the time, I wasn't set up with a business credit card account. I didn't have like all this free cash flow to throw thousands of dollars at Facebook and then say, oh, well, please wait for 2 months while I get this paid back, and you have to restart ads and they're not working because the market's changed. So when you have the power of control over cash flow, it's the literal game changer, because on a daily basis, you can look at things and have those direct results laid out. Like, I did this, I received this, this is my ROAS or my return on investment.
well, and that it's something I've talked about. This kind of gets off the subject of direct sales, but it's such a powerful part of any business, is like having cash flow being the key indicator of your business, right? Like it has the power, the force multiplying power, right? It's not just making more cash, it's how fast you cycle that cash through your business. So those dollars, just with what we're talking about, that cash has the ability to get through your business, 6 times faster? Probably more when you think about, I'd have to do the math real quick, but if you're getting paid in 2 working days, right, versus 60, so what's that, 30 something times faster, their cash is turning around, and it's more in sync with Facebook charging your credit card every time it hits $750 or whatever your limit might be, right? Like, right? Because it's not like they just charge you once a month. They could, if you're running a big campaign, they could charge you 2 or 3 times, right? Like, so having that, even if it's a small amount of cash that you can cycle back into your ads faster, is super powerful. And folks don't understand that the authors that are going to use those tools that way and think about like, okay, how many times can I use this dollar in a month? How much more they're going to get out of their business just with that mindset.
Well, I think that's where you then venture into scalability, where you then say, okay, I've made this much money and I've made a profit. So how do I like make more? So now how do I, like you said, how do you use that dollar again and again in the company? And when you have the ability to look at these metrics, you have cash in hand within 2 days, if even that, I mean, it could be faster. Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, this is working. So I'm going to throw more money into it and I'm going to make more money back. And then you start scaling that business up and up in your profits. And that's where you start to see growth. You start to see brand awareness happening in your books and your author name. And that's where you actually start to see your business expand, your influence as an author get bigger, and things move the way you want them to. And I think that's what you can't do with Amazon. As I was never able to scale. I was never able to say, I want to make more money because I didn't really know how these people were coming to my book.
Well, this has been really informative, Katie. Before we go, you want to tell people kind of what you got new that's coming out that they should know about, as well as where to find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at katiecrossbooks.com if you want to try out my funnel and just kind of see the way I do it from a reader's perspective. Go to welcome.kcrosswriting.com/welcome. That will take you to the welcome page where you can kind of subscribe to get my first book free and kind of just look at what I'm doing and saying, just see how it feels for you, and obviously figure out for yourself what you would want to do. But that gives you a chance to see a direct sales store in action. And right now, I just launched a fantasy book, and I am working fast on the next one to get it coming your way. So it's called Rise of the Demigods, and I'm super excited. So you can see all the information on katiecrossbooks.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing with everybody how this has gone for you.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Such a fun talk.
Yeah,
I can't, nerd out on this with a lot of people. So this is really exciting.
I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not really interested. But, and you can share your scar tissue and maybe save some people from.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of scar tissue. There's a lot there.
All right. Well, thanks, Katie.
Yeah. Thanks.
Be seeing you.